My name is Paulina Joseph. I'm 26 years old. For a decade, my brother Leo has been the golden boy of Chicago tech, while I was the sister who just couldn't keep up. At every family dinner, he showcased his promotions and six-figure bonuses like trophies, while my parents whispered about my lack of direction. But 6 months ago, at a steakhouse in the Loop, Leo threw a $20 bill at me in front of our parents and told me I could make more money cleaning his apartment than I ever would in an office. What he didn't know was that while I was being laid off from my little job, I had already built the one thing the world's largest logistics firm couldn't live without. He thought he was watching me drown. He didn't realize I was about to buy the ocean. The Josephs weren't just a family, they were a brand. My father had spent 30 years as a senior partner at one of the city's top law firms, and Leo was his masterpiece, a vice president at a tech giant by age 29. Our world was measured in high-rise views, country club memberships, and the assumption that a Joseph always wins. Then there was me. I didn't have the Ivy League degree or the corporate swagger. I had a side hustle, a data analytics code I'd spent 3 years writing in my bedroom that my father called a cute hobby and Leo called a waste of server space. To them, my value was tied to the title on my business card. When that card was taken away during a mass layoff, my parents didn't offer a loan. They offered a sigh of disappointment. They saw a girl with no future. I saw a 60-story tower downtown that was about to have my name on the deed. The air in Gibson Steakhouse was thick with the scent of charred ribeye and the heavy, suffocating weight of my father's expectations. It was a celebratory dinner for Leo's latest promotion, Senior Vice President of Operations, a title he'd been wielding like a scepter since we sat down. My parents beamed, their faces illuminated by the amber glow of the table lamp, looking at Leo as if he were the sun and they were merely planets caught in his orbit. "It's about the trajectory, Paulina," my father said, swirling his Cabernet. "Leo understands that life is a ladder. You don't just climb, you sprint." I gripped my water glass, the condensation chilling my palm. "I actually have some news, too," I started, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. The table went quiet, though not with anticipation, more like the polite silence you give a child before they speak. My firm had a restructuring today. A mass layoff. I was part of the group that let go. The silence changed. It turned into a cold, clinical disappointment. My mother's smile didn't drop, it just hardened into a thin line of pity. "Oh, Paulina. Again?" But it was Leo's reaction that felt like a physical blow. He didn't offer a word of comfort. He leaned back, a low, guttural chuckle escaping his throat. "Restructuring? Paulina, let's be real. They kept the people who mattered. You were a mid-level marketing assistant playing with spreadsheets." He sliced into his steak with surgical precision. "I told you that my data analytics hobby was a sinkhole. You spent 3 years coding a solution for a problem nobody has, and now look, you're 26 and back at square one." "It's not a hobby, Leo," I said, my blood beginning to simmer. "The software is functional. I've been testing it with small logistics firms and the efficiency rates." "Efficiency rates don't pay for that studio in Lincoln Park," Leo interrupted. He reached into his breast pocket, pulled out a leather wallet, and plucked a crisp $20 bill from the fold. He leaned over the table, dropping the money onto my plate, right on top of my untouched salmon. "Consider this a pity tip. Use it for a latte while you're updating that resume. Or, better yet, I'm looking for someone to deep-clean my new condo next Tuesday. I'll pay you triple the Joseph family rate." "It's more than you're worth, but hey, I believe in helping the less fortunate." My father didn't reprimand him. He just looked at the $20 bill and then back at his wine. "Maybe take the offer, Paulina. It might be good to stay busy." I looked at the bill, the green ink stark against the white china. The shame I expected to feel didn't come. Instead, a cold, crystalline clarity settled over me. They didn't see the woman who had spent the last 6 months quietly stabilizing the back end of a global shipping giant. They saw a failure. I realized then that I could never win their game by playing by their rules. I stood up, leaving the $20 bill on the plate. "Keep the money, Leo," I said, my voice finally steady. "You're going to need it for the rent in your new building. I hear the new owners are planning to raise the rates." Leo just laughed, the sound echoing off the wood-paneled walls as I walked out into the Chicago night. He thought he'd had the last word. He had no idea I had already started the conversation that would end his career. The weeks that followed lived in the blue light of 3 monitors and the smell of stale coffee. While Leo was posting Instagram stories of his new company car, a sleek, obsidian black sedan that cost more than my annual salary, I was selling my velvet sofa and my designer bags just to keep my cloud servers running. My studio apartment in Lincoln Park, once a place of curated comfort, had become a war room. I slept on a twin mattress on the floor, surrounded by tangled cables and printed lines of code that felt more like a map to my future than anything my father had ever taught me. Every morning, I'd wake up to a notification of Leo's success. A photo of him at a rooftop bar with the caption "Top Floor Living," or a shot of his new executive nameplate. He'd text me occasionally, always with that same condescending tone. "Offer for the cleaning job is still open. Don't let your pride keep you hungry." I never replied. I couldn't afford to waste the energy on resentment. All my focus was funneled into a single point: the massive logistical failure unfolding at Global Route Logistics. Through the back channels of the tech community, I knew they were hemorrhaging $1.2 million a day because their legacy systems couldn't handle the new global shipping routes. They were desperate, searching for a miracle, and the high-priced firms Leo worshipped were failing them. I spent 18 hours a day refining the hobby Leo had mocked. I wasn't just coding, I was building a digital nervous system for global trade. I survived on ramen and the quiet, burning memory of that $20 bill on my dinner plate. By the 3rd month, the darkroom phase began to pay off. A junior VP at Global Route, someone I'd met at a tech mixer a year ago, finally agreed to look at my pilot program. He didn't know I was a failed marketing assistant. He didn't know I was working out of a room filled with cardboard boxes. He only saw the data. When the software successfully rerouted 10,000 delayed containers in under 6 minutes, the silence on the other end of the Zoom call told me everything I needed to know. They didn't just want to buy the software, they needed it to survive. But I didn't want a buyout. I'd learned from the Joseph family that real power isn't a paycheck, it's ownership. I told them I wouldn't sell the IP for any amount of cash. Instead, I wanted a seat at the table of the holding company they were forming to acquire their competitors. While Leo was busy celebrating a 5% bonus, I was signing a deal that gave me a minority stake in a multi-billion-dollar real estate and tech conglomerate. I was still eating ramen, but the documents in my email were worth more than Leo's entire career. I was no longer the girl who lost her job. I was the silent partner in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to step into the light. The transition from a desperate developer to a corporate phantom happened over a single weekend. While the rest of the city was sleeping, I was in a glass-walled conference room at Global Route's temporary headquarters, watching the numbers on the screen settle into a perfect, profitable alignment. My software, which Leo had called a sinkhole, had just saved the company from a bankruptcy that would have sent ripples through the entire Midwest economy. The Ghost acquisition was born out of that desperation. Global Route didn't just need my code, they needed to expand to hide the scars of their near collapse. They set their sights on a mid-sized tech logistics firm that had been aggressively poaching their clients. That firm was Nexus Stream, the very company where Leo had just been promoted to senior vice president. I sat in the shadows of the negotiation as a technical consultant, my name nowhere on the public-facing documents. I watched through a remote feed as the Nexus Stream executives, including my brother, scrambled to justify their valuation. Leo was there, leaning into the camera, his tie perfectly knotted, talking about synergy and market dominance. He looked so confident, so certain that he was the one in control. "We have the most robust operational framework in the sector," Leo told the Global Route board, unaware that I was the one who had written the audit report they were currently using to tear his framework apart. I leaned into my microphone, my voice disguised by a slight digital filter used for the remote consultants. "Mr. Joseph, if your framework is so robust, why did your regional hub in Ohio experience a 40% latency spike last Tuesday? Our data suggests your systems are actually failing." I watched Leo's face go pale on the monitor. He stammered, looking at his notes, unable to find an answer because the answer was in a line of code he'd mocked 6 months ago. By the end of the week, Global Route had swallowed the Nexus stream whole. As part of my deal, I didn't take a massive cash payout. Instead, I negotiated for the assets Global Route was looking to offload during the merger, specifically, a struggling commercial real estate portfolio that included the flagship Glass Tower in downtown Chicago. To the world, it looked like a standard corporate restructuring. But in the fine print of the SEC filings, the ownership of the skyscraper was transferred to a holding company called EJ Visions, named after our grandmother, Paulina Joseph, the only person who had ever believed in my hobbies. Leo was thrilled. He texted the family group chat, "Huge news. Global Route just bought us out. I'm moving my office to the 60th floor of the Glass Tower next month. Success is a ladder, Paulina. Hope you're still cleaning." I looked at the deed on my desk, my thumb tracing the embossed seal. I didn't reply. He was right about one thing. He was moving to the 60th floor. He just didn't realize who held the lease. The celebration was held at my parents' house, a sprawling suburban estate that felt more like a shrine to Leo's career than a home. The mantel was crowded with his rowing trophies and framed 40 under 40 features. Leo was in rare form, holding a glass of expensive scotch and holding court in the center of the living room. "The Glass Tower," he proclaimed, his voice booming with the unearned confidence of a man who thought he'd conquered the city. 60 floors of steel and ego. Global Route is moving the entire executive suite there on Monday. My new office has a 360-degree view of the lake. My father beamed, clapping Leo on the shoulder. "A Joseph at the top of the skyline. It's exactly where you belong, son." Then his eyes drifted to me. I was sitting on the edge of the sofa, wearing an old sweater, nursing a lukewarm soda. "And Paulina? Still consulting from your bedroom." "I've been busy, Dad," I said quietly. Leo snorted, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Busy doing what? Applying for government grants for struggling artists?" "Listen, the offer is still on the table. The new building is going to need a lot of maintenance staff. I could probably get you a job in the mailroom. It's steady work, which is more than you've had in a year." The family laughed, that soft, comfortable laugh that comes at the expense of the person everyone has agreed is the failure. My mother sighed, a look of performative sadness on her face. "Paulina, don't be stubborn. Your brother is offering you a lifeline. You can't live in that dark apartment forever." "I'm actually moving on Monday, too," I said. Leo rolled his eyes. "To where?" "A bigger basement." "To the Glass Tower," I replied. The room went still for a second before Leo let out a bark of a laugh. "The Glass Tower? Paulina, that's an A-list corporate hub. You can't just walk in there and ask for a desk. They have security checkpoints that look for credentials you don't possess." "I have a meeting there at 8 a.m. with the new ownership group," I said, standing up. "They're restructuring the executive floor." Leo smirked, shaking his head. "Well, make sure you wear something that doesn't have holes in it. I'd hate for security to escort my sister out while I'm trying to have my morning briefing." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at the $20 bill Leo had framed and hung in his home office as a joke, the very bill he'd thrown at me 6 months ago. "See you on the 60th floor, Leo," I said. As I walked to my car, I could hear them laughing behind the closed front door. They thought the joke was on me. They had no idea that on Monday morning, the golden boy would find out that the ladder he'd spent his life climbing was leaning against my building. Monday morning arrived with the kind of sharp, biting wind that only Chicago can produce. I stood in the lobby of the Glass Tower, watching the reflection of the sunrise hit the polished marble floors. I wasn't wearing a borrowed blazer or a thrifted suit. I was wearing a tailored charcoal coat and the quiet, heavy confidence of a woman who had finally stopped asking for a seat and simply bought the table. Leo arrived at 7:55 a.m., surrounded by 3 other Nexus Stream executives. He looked like the picture of corporate success until he saw me standing by the elevators. "Paulina." He stopped, his brow furrowing as he noticed my presence. "I told you. The mailroom intake is in the basement. You can't be in the main lobby without a high-level badge." He turned to the security guard, his voice rising with that practiced authority. "Excuse me, this woman is my sister. She's a bit lost. Could you show her to the service entrance? The guard didn't move. He didn't even look at Leo. He looked at me and nodded. Good morning, Miss Joseph. The board is waiting for you in the North Suite. Leo's laugh was brittle. Miss Joseph? North Suite? There's been a mistake. I'm the senior VP. I'm the one with the meeting. I didn't say a word. I simply stepped into the private express elevator. The doors closed on Leo's confused face, and 30 seconds later, the bell chimed for the 60th floor. The North Suite was a masterpiece of glass and silence. I sat in the high-backed leather chair behind the mahogany desk, looking out over Lake Michigan. When the double doors finally opened 10 minutes later, Leo marched in, flanked by his team. He was mid-sentence, complaining about a security glitch, when he saw me. He froze. His eyes traveled from my face to the nameplate on the desk that read, Paulina Joseph, Principal, EJ Visions. What is this? Leo whispered, his voice cracking. What are you doing in the chairman's chair, Paulina? This isn't funny. Robert Hartley, the interim CEO of the holding group, stepped forward. Mr. Joseph, please take a seat. We're here to discuss the restructuring of Nexus Stream. As you know, the acquisition gave the new parent company full discretion over executive leadership. He gestured toward me. I believe you've met our majority shareholder. Leo sank into the chair across from me. The arrogance that had defined him for a decade vanished, replaced by a hollow, haunting realization. The software, he breathed, looking at the monitors displaying the global route logistics maps, the ones I had built. You actually did it. You told me it was a hobby, Leo, I said, my voice calm, devoid of the anger I thought I'd feel. You told me I was unemployable. But while you were busy climbing a ladder, I was building the skyscraper. I reached into the top drawer of the desk and pulled out a small, framed object. It was the $20 bill he'd thrown at me. I slid it across the polished wood toward him. I'm not firing you, Leo. Your experience in operations is actually quite useful for the lower-tier regional hubs in South Dakota. We're moving the main operations there next month. It's a step down, sure, but as you always say, success is about the trajectory. I suggest you start sprinting. Leo stared at the $20 bill, then up at me. For the first time in my life, he didn't have a comeback. He didn't laugh. He only had the quiet, devastating view of the sister he had never bothered to truly see. I turned my chair back to the window, the Chicago skyline stretching out before me like a promise kept. The Joseph family brand was finally under new management. And for the first time, the view from the top was perfectly clear.